Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir El Azouzi from easymedicaldevice.com, and today we'll talk about change management specifically for software and specifically also about the different level of changes, significant, non-significant, etc., etc. And for that, I have with me Anindya Mukherjee. So Anindya, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Hi, Manish.
Great.
Thank you.
So Anindya, just maybe a quick introduction of yourself to the people so that they understand who you are.
Sure. I'm co-founder and CEO at SCube Technologies, and we build our flagship product, EQMS solution called SmartEye. And you are one of the mentor of the company, a co-founder. So we are a growing startup, now more than a startup, and and I've got a quality and regulatory experience in the industry for more than 22 years now. Mainly a subject matter expert in software as a medical device. But of course, can't be away from the equipment or the hardware medical device as well.
Great. So today we'll talk about mainly a change of software. So we know that many software are making a lot of changes because of some small, big changes, and we'll talk about that today. But mainly for people that are listening and that are really interested about that. So can you tell me why the change management or change control is so critical for those software?
Yeah, change is something which is like, changing from its previous state. It's a new state, right? From old state to new state. And any change in the medical device can be quite important. And change management is, we can define it as maybe a structured way of handling any change. And this change can be a change to a product, to the process or a system. Any product or process or system which was already reviewed, approved, and now if we are changing anything in that, so it should have a structural way of managing that change, and reapprove it, re-review it, right? Yeah, and see, so maybe in everyday life, Munir, when we make a change, we are not too much thoughtful about it, but in medical device, even the smallest change could impact the patient safety, the performance, which is product efficacy, or from the regulatory perspective, the compliance. So it's very, very important that we have a structured process defined for handling the change.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, so mainly it's like the history of what you have done with the device, the different changes that you have done with the device. Because yeah, it's true that maybe you will forget that and you have the auditors will be asking you, oh, can you show me all the changes that you have done? And you'll forget that you have done this change or that change. So you have to really have some histories about that. And in terms of changes, there are, I mean, we have the small changes and the big changes. So what are the different levels that we can maybe identify here?
Sure, that's a good question. So, see, from the regulation perspective, the standard guidelines, they talk only changes in two terms, which is significant and non-significant. However, from internal to the company, and especially when we handle a software, we like to define change in four different levels. Which is like a change which just require a patch, which we usually say a tiny fix on a typo or a very, very minor bug. So that's the first one, patch. Then the minor change that really require a bit of swapping of code or something equivalent, a newer version, but not changing anything functionality or not even a major UI change. So that's minor. Then comes the major. So it can be the big change that requires more planning, more testing, more resources, and then something we call as significant, which is like a big change that is impacting the regulations, the regulatory. So the first three are mainly from the internal perspective, like the patch or the minor or major. But all of these has to be undergo then through regulations, whether it's significant or non-significant. So anything which is significant, then the regulatory affair team may want to inform that to the authorities, and anything which is non-significant, They don't want to give it. Now, the categorization is helpful because I've seen with my experience that a change can be major, but from the from internal perspective, internal product or process, and I can later on give you some real life example, but they might not be interested in terms of significant from the regulation perspective. So we have to define a proper process where it's well defined that not every major change can be a significant, which is of interest to the regulations. So this is how I define the different levels of changes.
And in terms of those changes, you have multiple types of categories of changes mainly. So can you give us some examples?
Yeah, so the patches, as I said, that maybe it's a typo here and there,
So
and
when you say typo is like something that the maybe the user will not even see if you are making the change, I suppose.
yeah, I mean, and it's not a yeah, as you said, the user might not see it, may not be impacting the safety parameters, or like it's not impacting patient or user in any way. It's just maybe a necessary somewhere in the software, or maybe just a lowercase to uppercase in label somewhere, but it's not impacting things anywhere. That's a patch. Minor is again very, very little change in terms of let's say it's a new version of the software, or let's say you are changing a vendor, but it's the same functionality, same UI, everything same, but you are just uh, changing the brand, which is not even visible to the customer. Now, it is no way changing your intended purpose. It is no way changing your functionality or UI in any ways significantly. So these are the patch and the minor changes. A major change can be which means big internally, like it can involve a lot of work, lot of testing, lot of coordination, but then it may not require anything significantly high that the regulation wants to change, let the authorities know.
So
Um,
all this more you go up, more maybe you will have to reach the authorities and more you have to document all those changes there. So it's more like you have really to provide more information to justify why this change is safe, all the tests that you have to do, etc. But you will not do the same level of testing if you are at a patch than if it's a major, if I can say here.
Meet Alex. He needs to create an electronic instruction for use. With EasyIFU, he uploads the document and in just a second gets a QR code. The code is printed on the packaging and shipped with the product. The user receives it, scan it, and the IFU appears fast and always up to date. Simple, fast, paperless. Easy IFU, the smart way to manage your IFUs.
yeah. So again, if I think of and more example, like the patches, like I said, sometimes a spelling error in the device UI, which you rightly mentioned that it is not impacting the patient. Minor change, maybe change a cable to the same type, like somewhere the wire of a medical device, you are changing the wire. It's just a minor change, and it's not impacting, again, it's the same quality, same type, but maybe there is a cost effective change, so it's considered to be a minor change on the product, but again, it's not a change in the intended use. So
So here on those terms like patch, major, minor, significant, etc. So is there any guidance or standard or guidelines that are existing for companies to really understand mainly this, or you define it per company, and you define what means each things per company. So is there a standard, or it's a wild, wild west, if I can say, and everybody decides what they want?
Sure, good. Yeah, good question. See, when it comes to patch, minor, and major, sadly, there is no standard or guideline which talks about, specifically about these terms. But it just is an industry standard where everyone work in that way, right? So even 62304 or any other standard which talks about software, they do talk about the different levels, but they don't specifically talk about patch, minor, major, and it is more like a internal quality SOPs, which you define that a tiny typo is a tiny change is a patch, more than that is a minor, a major is a big thing. And also specifically, they do it because to make the things lean. It also, the higher the level, you require more approvals. For example, if it is a major change, you require more testing. You may need to retest your everything again. You need more approvals. Maybe from the executive level, you need approval. But if it is patch or minor, you can have that framework of approvals that it can be from the middle management and not from the higher management. That's also. But when it comes to significant and non-significant, then FDA from the US side, they do talk about it. And to be specific, from the European side, we have MDCG 2020-3 that talks about the significant change and non-significant change. They have even give some specific charts about how to deal with different categories of changes, and you in the flow chart you can really have an answer. So I've seen many companies having that kind of way of doing it. So yeah, so the gist is that it's internal when you define your minor, patch, minor, major, and you can even blend few of them if you want to really keep it more lean. But when it is the regulations, is the MDCG FDA which talks about significant and non-significant.
Exactly, yeah, because when we talk about those changes, there is this limit of you have to inform the regulation, the regulatory, the competent authority or not, or the notified bodies mainly. But it can be a major significant or a major non-significant. It's really the significant or non-significant, as you mentioned, is really just for the authorities, but not for mainly for you. It will not change specifically for your software. A part to really inform the authorities about that. So, as you mentioned, also NDCGs for Europe, you have US that has all things. You have every country has its own rules of what is a significant and non-significant. So, also be really careful about that. When we do also those changes, we have also to visualize, if I can say, those changes. So like with version of your software, like I saw sometimes it's like 1.0.0, 1.0 only or 1 only, etc. So there are also some type of versioning that I saw some people say, oh, if we move this digit, it will be a minor. If we move this digit, it will be a patch, etc. So there are also those rules like that. So is it also something that is standardized, or it's something that you have to decide also for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, again, this usually the companies decide, and specific to software, I can give you an example, like you said. So we usually define the versioning in X.Y.Z, where any patch, if there's a patch change, then just the Z part of the versioning is changing, and that is incrementing. And when there is a minor change, then the Y part of that version change. And when there's major, then the X part change. So X.Y.Z. So if the product is getting changed in terms of some requirements or design, then it's a major change. And then the X part of so version 1 becomes version 2, and then version 1 point, the Y part that covers the minor changes, and the Z covers the patches. So this is how the versioning is maintained, and this is how the product is incremented.
Okay, and in terms of what we discussed just before about major and non-significant or significant, so do you have some examples like something that is really a major but it's not significant at all for the authorities? So you can make this change without informing the authorities?
Yeah, sure. See, major, let's try to understand this once more, because there's a lot of confusion between major and significant, and there are many regulatory affair team. They try to combine major and significant, which is probably not true, because not every major is significant. So major means big for us. If I'm the company, it's big for us when I'm talking about internally, which in a way has a lot of work, lot of testing, lot of coordination, as I said before. Significant means big for regulators. Major means big internally. Significant means big regulator for regulators, and that basically impact the safety, patient safety, the product performance, or the intended use. And a change can be significant and major, or it can be major but still non-significant. Um, Let me think of an example. Yeah, sure. So there is a situation that comes up a lot, and this is again a confusion between engineering team and regulatory team. Let's imagine that your device, the medical device, it uses the LCD display that is suddenly discontinued by the supplier. Okay,
Okay.
now you can't get it anymore, so you have to find a replacement. For example, now you find another LCD display that is identical in every way. That matters, like the same size, same brightness, same resolution, same power consumption. Now internally, Munir, this is a big job, because you have to have a supplier qualification, you have to do a lot of retesting, evaluation, manufacturing updates, the training, because it's a new branded one. Uh, Now, from the workload perspective, internally, this is definitely a major change internally. But from regulatory perspective, nothing has changed in terms of safety, performance, and for that matter, intended use of the device. So in terms of the significant, non-significant, from the regulatory perspective, it is a non-significant change, because they may not want to, inform that to the authority. But from the internal perspective, it's a major change, because it's a lot of work, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
I can understand, yeah, because yeah, as you mentioned, so you have to understand that maybe there are some changes that are done, but you as a quality or regulatory person, you have to provide a lot of justification also why this is not really significant, why the prove me it's really the same, prove
Yeah.
me everything is fine, prove me there is no additional risk, prove me. And when you have done all these proofs, so you say, okay, now it's fine, so I don't have to, I proved it, my point is correct, so then it's not significant, then I can move forward without that. You still have to document all this, so it's why it's really important to have this change management, but you don't need to then go to the authorities for doing that. I suppose also here you talk about the LCD, but if we change the way of manufacturing, or you move from if we talk specifically about for example manufacturing, if you change the manufacturing, you have also to do the same. Even if it's a change, you have to prove it's exactly the same way of manufacturing. Maybe we change just the water, or change just the filter, or change just something, but it's exactly the same. So this is applicable to not only the product, it's also the way of manufacturing this. So
So
is
one of the Sure, sure. So one of the good way of doing this, Manir, is when there is let's say a major change, or for that matter minor change or a major change, define it well with a definition, and then if you are a company in Europe, you can use this guide, MDCG 2020-3 guide. And I was talking about these charts, right? So there are like chart A, B, C, D, E. Chart A is it talks about the intended purpose, B about design and performance, and we can check this later. I don't remember that at the top of my mind, but C is for software, D I think is for material, and the last one, E, is packaging and sterilization. Yeah, I mean we can check this later. Now. When it is like this major change, like LCD or any major change internally happened, I suggest that this should be this major change should be getting into this chart, chart A, chart B, C, D, E, and we should see that if there is a change in intended purpose, So if this major change cause an intended purpose change, then it is a significant change from intended purpose. If not, it stays a major change, but it is not significant. Similarly, if it you see the chart B, the major change, it may not change the design at all. It's the same design, but still it's a major change. But if not, it's not changing your design or performance. It's not significant from that perspective, right? Similarly, software or material, a material, there might be a major change, but then it is not impacting your patient in terms of material, then it's not a significant change. So this is how one of the good way of doing it, that to see if it's a patch or a minor or major internally, if falling into this chart result into yes, it's significant, or no, it is non-significant, then it's an efficient way of finding it. Otherwise, every major change, if you start reporting to the authorities from the regulations, ultimately, they will not be interested, and it's a waste of time, and it's not a effective and a lean way of working. So that's a scientific way of seeing that. Not see, definitely every significant change is a major change, but not every major change could be a significant. So just to make it lean and more efficient and effective, I think this thought process will be helpful for the companies.
Exactly, yeah. And in the other way, do you have example of a small change that we think it's really small, but definitely at the end it becomes really significant?
Yeah, sure. In my few years back, I was doing a consultancy in one of the software medical device companies, and let's say there's a health app which is mainly for the senior citizens, and it was in the form of a flower, and every petal talks about its regimen, and the morning regimen, afternoon, things like that. Now, there was a small UI tweak that happened between two of petals, and as a result, what happened? Accidentally, the order or the sequence of the petal got changed. Now,
Okay.
internally, to software team, it was a very, very small, because it was probably less than a month job, or even a couple of weeks job. Hardly any testing was required, because it's a little bit of UI change. However, it resulted into some like kind of fatal accident, because it was for class 2B, and a few people, they misread, because they were so used to that, a petal of the flower which is upright, or vertical or horizontal, it always gives me this. However, because of that small tweak, it just got its position changed, and that became a very significant. So this was the thing that it internally, it was a minor change, but then it was never discussed with the regulations, or it was never felt in a way from the usability perspective, and they misread it, and it resulted into wrong medicines and things like that. Yeah,
Yeah, and
so
it's sometimes the problem that when you don't discuss with your regulatory people, you'll find out after that it can be a problem. By the way, when we have a team, and because I suppose when we are making those changes, as you mentioned, we have a change control process. So we start to request a change, and we can start to discuss about this change, etc. And you have a team, and you have to include maybe a regulatory also on this team for that. What happens when mainly you say it's a major? They say no, it's a minor. The engineer say, but it's just a patch. It's nothing. It's a small thing. So, did you have this situation also where we have some discussion, hard discussion about that?
yeah, many times. And the simple answer is follow your guideline. If you are targeting the US market, follow your what FDA guidance says about that change, and what European, let's say, MDR, MDCG guidelines say about it. Because like I said, even in that previous example, from the software development and testing perspective, it was really a small change, and I was one of the proof that yes, it was a small change. But then it was never discussed with the regulators or the patient safety team that a little bit of angle change of those petal can cause a fatal thing. So yes, there is a disagreement, but I think one of the important thing is that each and everything should be properly documented. So I am spending 1,000 hours for development and testing does not make something as significant. and I spend just 10 hours to make a change and it is non-significant. So, because it's very important to understand, probably I'm repeating it for the fifth time, sixth time, that there is a difference between internal small and big change versus how it impacts the regulations and the patient and the medical world. So that's very important. So whenever there is a disagreement, definitely the quality and regulatory affairs, they are the frontline teams. But the R&D team or the device team or the software team, they have to come with a proper justification that what they feel. And my suggestion is always refer to these guidelines. Like, for example, an easy one is the MDCG 2020-3. They provide a very scientific charts. Just whatever changes are, just put it there, and it will. You just have to answer in yes and no, and it will give you a very clear-cut answer whether it's significant or non-significant. So instead of getting into too much of discussion, which never result into a quick decision, I think if we take a help of our documentation and these flow charts from these guidelines, I think that's a black and white decision.
Yeah, and mainly when you are making this decision, as you've said, there is some compliance behind, but you have also some people that are using those apps or those software tools, etc. So that can be also some impact on their health or lives. So with the example of the petal, for example, you say, for example, it's non-significant, non-major, etc. But at the end, we find out it was significant. So what was the consequence for a company? You had to do a full information recall, whatever. I mean, what was exactly the consequence for doing this, having this risk misclassified mainly?
Sure. So there was a complaint. There was a
Complaint.
complaint.
Okay.
It was, recorded as an adverse event.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, it wasn't ultimately it wasn't a recall, but then there was a lot of scrutiny and why it happened, and then obviously the everything has to be a redesign and as per the patient, because they were used to certain things from many years, and now suddenly without informing them it got changed. So if the information would have been passed, the minor change could still be a non-significant. But since it was not well communicated and not well documented, it did not go to the user manual. And the old customers, they took the things as is, and they did not realize that now the petal which was vertical now has become a little tilted, and the vertical is giving a different medicine. So that was, yeah, a major havoc. But I think the lesson learned was that everything should be well defined and everything should go to those decision charts, with one of the guidelines, whatever the product is applicable to, and then you don't go wrong. So I think the best is the quality team can have those reports getting into those charts, and the result should be shared by to regulation. If it is a clear cut non-significant, they don't get involved. If it is a clear cut significant, they get involved. Sometimes it's a boundary line where uh, there can be a decision making thing, and it's always good to be considering it as significant rather than non-significant if it's in the boundary line. So that's
Yeah.
how I think they should always go
Yeah,
and approach
and I
things.
think, as you mentioned, the documentation is really important to justify why you have done made this decision, because I suppose a few months later or 1 year later you will not remember all that. And if you are, for example, in front of an auditor or regulator and he's disagreeing about your classification, then if you have not documented anything, I think you are in trouble then.
Yeah, so documentation is most important. So every change should have a change management plan. It should have an impact assessment process. It should have regulatory impact. It should have, the questions like we have Smart Eye, where it gives you the step by process that first define the change, and if this change is just a patch, a minor, major, and then all changes get into that impact assessment. And if you're not doing, give a proper justification why you're not doing an impact assessment. Then, it goes for a significant or non-significant criteria, each and every change. And only if it is significant, it goes to the regulations or a boundary value. All of these then have an approval process, because everything is documented in Smart Eye. Then it has a proper approval process. from the CCB. And then when the change happens, in the end, it's very important to see that the changes are all verified and that those changes are not impacted the already working software or the equipments, right? So in our that petal example, the regression testing was not done properly because they just checked that the change is working fine, but that change has impacted the already working petals, right? So their position got changed, the alignment got changed. So I think the effectiveness of the change and the regression is very, very important. Versioning is very important. Release note is very important for the change. So in the release note, it's very important to say that it's a change in the Z of the total versioning or the Y or the X. And it's very important that the corresponding testing team take the right version for the test, because this is one of the major mistake happens in the companies, that the wrong version goes to the testing team. They test something wrong, and the production it goes something different. So I think versioning is very important along with the release note. So each and every documentation. So that's why Smart Eye or any other EQMS tools, whoever covers these, I think the companies should take care of their change management process with the help of one of the EQMS system, because in the longer run, the paper-based or to manage the change on the paper can be very risky to manage. So I think a guided approach with the help of this EQMS system is very helpful, Manir.
Great. So now to summarize all what we discussed now, so mainly what are the biggest mistakes that you see companies doing with change management? So many things that are really obvious.
Yeah, so one of the thing is they are reactive. That
Okay.
okay, so the change has happened now, involving regulatory team quite late in the
Okay.
process, and
And discovering afterward it's a significant why they were not aware. Okay.
and now it's too late. So I think it's a process when you are finding whether this change, what is this change about. I think all the important stakeholders should be involved: quality, regulatory, patient safety. So the change control board, CCB, should be a smart one. So
Okay.
CCB should be very versatile. It's not just a QA or RA. It should be like the product, anyone who understands domain, anyone who understands the overall patient safety, the product efficacy. So all the stakeholders should be there. So when the change is requested, be it the internal change or the product is in the market, in both the cases, the CCB should be involved. And first, the feasibility check whether, and this is all proactive process, not reactive, whether this is any significant or non-significant. Okay, so this decision is done, and then whether again it's a major minor. Now major minor patch is also internal because it has a lot of financial impacts, so which the authorities and regulations, they don't care, let's say, because do you have a budget to do this big change or not. Now that doesn't mean that I've spent a lot of money, a lot of effort, so it becomes significant and the authority should be informed. It never works like that, right? So it can be non-significant as well, through various examples we discussed. But if the it doesn't matter how much money is spent, but if it is impacting your intended use, your patient safety, then it becomes significant. So this is all proactive approach, that get the team closure and document each and everything, maintain the versioning, maintain the release note, maintain the communication, do a good testing, good regression testing. So these are the things. And second is overcomplicating the process. So for example, in many companies, I see each and every major change, like I said, that I spend a lot of time and money, so it becomes significant. Let me inform my authorities. This is overcomplication. So you should know that what change is significant, and what change, and hence you should know your proper channel to take those changes and take it to the authority. So do not be reactive, be proactive, and take it lean and simple, and
Okay.
effective, rather than complicating the
Great.
process.
In terms of Smart Eye, because we talked about Smart Eye, and as you've said, we are also advising about Smart Eye, so that is a medical device. So what's mainly um, with all what we talked now? So is this like configured to help the users to do the change correctly?
Sure. So Smart Eye offers a very a powerful module in terms of document control change and the engineering change. So when there is a document change, you can first step is like you take a pre-approval whether this requires the entire change management, or you can just create a new version change and do it, because Smart Eye you can configure it to a locking the document after a design review, because otherwise you can keep on changing the document without any measurement of the impacts and everything. So the admin can always lock a document, and to unlock, do you require a change management process is the first step. And then, there's if the answer is yes, it should go through the change management. Then Smart Eye gives you a very powerful and scientific framework of, doing, performing an impact assessment. Then you can go through the significant change, whether it's a significant or non-significant, and then the actual change happens. And then when you have, let's say, 100 documents in your master repository, and out of that, let's say only 10 requires change, then Smart Eye gives a new workspace of change workspace that we call. During that, no one can touch those 10 documents that is undergoing change, but they can keep on working on the remaining 90 documents. And these 10 documents have a special area where you are working only on the changes till it gets reviewed, approved, regression tested, and then it gets merged with the master 100 documents. So now 90 documents remain as it is, and now these 10 documents with a proper versioning of patch, minor, or major, it gets into the master document control module. So this is how the document change management is done. Similarly, the engineering change, it is with your technical file, or let's say DHF, DMR, where the changes happens, and those changes comes here, and with the same process of impact assessment, significant change, and the verification, testing, and then merging the changes into the main DHF. Yeah, so Smart Eye takes care of each and every process very systematically and very nicely. And in the end, it offers a checklist that, every change that you planned, have you done it properly or not before you merge the change. So this means that, first you have ensured that, you have whatever change you planned, those changes you have done correctly and completely, because you have tested it. And also in the checklist, it asks that, have you done the proper regression testing to ensure that the already working, modules are or already working, the product or process is not broken. So this is all very scientifically, you can manage in Smart Eye.
And I suppose for people that are listening, if they are really interested to go within Smart Eye, they can contact you and then you can make a demo for them.
Sure, anytime, 24/7, and they can contact you or me. Yeah, and we are always there to, guide them the right way of handling the change management.
Great. Okay, Anindya, so thank you very much. I will put all the details on the show notes so that people can get more information about Smart Eye or about changes. Yeah, for anybody that is listening to this episode and has mainly some question also, you can directly reach out to Anindya for maybe getting some support if you are in the process of making some change and you are lost. Is it a minor, major, etc.? Maybe you can pinpoint about that. And yeah, if you have any question also related to Smart Eye, so don't hesitate to join me or join Anindya mainly for that. Okay, Anindya, it was really a pleasure. Thank you very much for your help, and I wish you a nice day.
Pleasure, Mani. Thanks for inviting again, and you do have a good luck in everything you do. Thanks, Mani. Bye.